Hey, what's happening? Coach Ryan Family here from VIPAR. I'm really sorry for filming this in a fully equipped gym. I realize it's a little bit of a tease to a lot of you that don't have access to gym equipment right now. But don't worry, I'm not giving you any gym stuff today. We're doing all quarantine exercises that you can do at home. Today I want to teach you how to rehab your deadlift or your hip hinging movement pattern. A lot of times, this pattern can get really funky in people where they start to get pain in their low back or they feel they're going to one side more than the other. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about why that happens, and then we will dive into some fixes for this. Take advantage of this time to come out of the quarantine, come out of this pandemic better than you were when you went in. There's no point sitting at home sulking, I don't have my gym. Forget that. It's a horrible attitude. You may not have a gym, but you have lots of things that you can work on. Not to mention, in the grand scheme of life, the gym isn't really that big of a deal. Okay, let's be honest. There's people without food, without water. They're losing loved ones with this pandemic. So at the end of the day, whining about not being in the gym, kind of a waste of time, and it makes you look bad. I'm sorry, that was a little bit of a rant. Okay, we are going to refocus on the hip hinge or Romanian deadlift pattern. So when we talk about hip hinge, we're talking about like an RDL, Romanian deadlift. Reaching the butt back with straight legs, loading the glutes, hamstrings, and low back, and then coming up. Now, what happens to a lot of people in this exercise, it happens to me personally, when I start to get really strong on this, and I've done 500 pounds for 10 reps on this exercise on a basic RDL with a snatch grip, a wide grip, what happens to me is my spinal erectors take the brunt of the load. They get really, really strong at the expense of my glutes and hamstrings. I don't feel like I get much glute or hamstring development past a certain point. So what I found is by taking some time to reset those patterns, by doing some of these exercises, I can kind of sit into my hamstrings and glutes a little bit better, take a little more pressure off the erectors while still moving heavy weights, okay? So this is something that I revisit periodically from time to time, and it's just a series of exercises that you can do at home without gym equipment to help kind of repattern your hip hinge, okay? So let's dive right in. First thing we want to do is warm up the hip hinge pattern with a focus on the adductors. The adductor magnus is a groin muscle that also acts as a hamstring, so it's very active in the RDL and the hip hinge. The problem is sometimes this can get inhibited and it leads you to that wonky feeling like you're only sitting into one side or your pelvis isn't level. A lot of people have that strange feeling, and for a fact, if your pelvis isn't level, it is going to put a ton of stress on your low back. So you want to make sure the adductors are working great. So this is an awesome exercise to activate the adductors and grease the groove. You're going to need something to elevate your heels and toes on. I've just got some 2x4s here. You can also use some weight plates. You can use books around the house. Anything of that nature. Just be creative and find something. You're going to take a squishy ball. You can also use a pillow. You're just using it for something to squeeze. You're going to put it between your knees, and then you're going to start with your toes elevated on the board. Now you want to be able to maintain a good, hard, active contraction of the adductor muscles while keeping your hips, knees, and toes in a line. You want to keep in a good neutral pattern here. Toes are pointing straight forward. Good hard squeeze with the groin the entire time. You're going to start by standing up straight, driving the hips through by squeezing the glutes. Now this is harder than it looks to even stand like that in complete hip extension. Then you're going to blow all your air out and reach your butt to the wall behind you. And go as low as you can. And then stand back up, squeeze the glutes. You can even reach for the sky at the top if you want. That's valuable. I just don't have the shoulder mobility to do so, so I'm not going to do it. Squeeze, and then blow all your air out as you push the hips back. Now, you're going to find that you can't really go as low as normal with your toes elevated. That's because that dorsiflex position puts a ton of tension through the posterior chain and the fascia that covers and envelops the muscle. So it puts it in kind of a restricted range. So you're fully stretching that fascia out, which makes it tougher to go low. So you're essentially pre-stretching the posterior chain by elevating the toes. So you're going to find it hard to get lower. So right now, for me, about mid-shin is all I got. I'm also keeping a neutral spine here. It's important to notice I'm not arching my back or rounding over. I'm staying nice and neutral with the rib cage and the pelvis in a line the whole time. I'm locking that position in and then just moving from the hips. You're going to do 10 reps with the toes elevated. Then you're going to come to the other side and you're going to elevate your heels, still squeezing the ball. Now, same thing. Get up tall, squeeze the glutes, blow all your air out, and then reach as low as you can. Now, You will find that on this version, you can get a lot lower because it does the opposite of elevating the toes. Now we're putting slack through that fascia in the posterior chain and allowing you to go a little bit further. So you're gonna do 10 reps that way. Then you're gonna go back to toes elevated. So you're gonna do 3 rounds of this. 10 reps with the toes elevated, 10 reps with the heels elevated. You are gonna find that with each successive round, you get a little bit more mobility on each exercise. You're taking advantage of nervous system potentiation of range of motion throughout this. So once you get your 3 sets done, then it's time to move on to the next series. Next, we're gonna wake up the glutes in 3 specific spots and 3 specific joint angles that are all important to the deadlift. So this pairing is gonna be lunge isometric hold paired with a banded clamshell. I've got a hip circle here made by Mark Bell. You can also use a booty band, you can use a little elastic loop bands, or you can use no band. It really doesn't require a band, it just adds to it. So don't feel like you can't do it if you don't have a band or a hip circle. You're going to get into a split position, and you're gonna lower, the first position is going to be in basically the top quarter of a lunge. So I'm just gonna drop down to about here, in that first, so I'm still pretty high. The key with this is you wanna keep a vertical shin. You don't want the knee to go way forward, you don't want it to be way behind. Keep a vertical tibia the whole time. When you're in this position, get your torso upright, brace your abs, and then just try to squeeze your butt cheek as hard as you can. You can even, if you like to fill yourself up, you can even use your hand to kind of palpate or feel that glute contracting. And you want to squeeze as hard as you can, and you're just going to hold this position for 30 to 60 seconds, okay? You don't want your quad to be burning, you want it to be focused at the glutes. You may have to, the cool thing about the isometric hold is you can play with pelvic position. So if you find you don't feel your glutes fine here, try tucking your pelvis up and, oh, there we go, it really switched on there. So my glute's not on very hard here, but then when I rotate the pelvis upward, man, it really switches on. Okay, so 30 seconds in that position. Then you're gonna do a basic clamshell exercise. Clamshell, really quickly, loop band goes around the knees, and you're simply going to lay down on the ground, and you're going to open up like a clam, okay, like a clamshell. Now we're going to do this at multiple positions. The first position is going to be with the legs kind of down away from your body, and we're doing them like this, okay, to match that first lunge position. Ooh. Hard to stand up with this bad boy, okay. So just to reiterate, the clamshell position, you want to have roughly in that same hip joint angle as the first lunge position. So the legs, the hips not flexed very much. The second lunge position, we're still keeping that vertical shin, but now we're going a little bit deeper. We're going down into like a half lunge. And we're still contracting that glute, keeping the pelvis, rib cage neutral, and squeezing that glute hard while keeping a vertical front shin. Now the second round of clamshells is going to be at a bigger hip flexion angle. So the first angle was here. The second angle you're gonna bring, while laying on your side of course, you're gonna bring your knees up a little more and do your clamshells there. The third and final position is a deep lunge position. You're gonna drop all the way down as low as you can. It actually helps if you can find something to really elevate both feet on. So as an example, I'll use a plate in my box here, my 2x4s. If you can elevate both feet, this is even better. But you start in a deep lunge position, and you come up and you're holding just at the very bottom, squeezing that glute to really activate the glute in that deepest position. Then the clamshell that's paired with that is going to be with the hip really flexed. Get that knee up as high as you can while you're sidelining and do your clamshells that way. So 3 sets of each, 30 to 60 seconds on the lunge isometric hold each leg, and then between 10 and 20 reps with a clamshell on each leg in each position. I also recommend you pause for just a split second at the contracted position of each on the clamshell. All right, the last part of the series here today we're going to deal with, we're going to actually include the RDL movement pattern, and then we're also going to include something to help smooth it out a little bit. A lot of people, they feel like they just can't get into their hips or hamstrings in that RDL pattern. They feel like it just goes straight to their back right out of the gate. A couple reasons for that. Number one, And the drill we did previously will address that. The first reason is when they first start the hinge, they don't load the glutes and hamstrings properly. That lunge isometric, the reason we do that isometric in that top position is to take care of that initial phase of the deadlift, to get the glutes and hamstrings taken over right out of the gate. If they're not switched on at that early stage of hip flexion, then your lower back's gonna take the brunt of all the work. That's why we're spending time in that with those partial isometric lunges. Because the fact remains, most people don't spend a lot of time in that top position in a lunge. Okay, so it gets neglected, the movement pattern gets a little wonky, and that's why we do that. So that helps with that. Another reason that the RDL pattern often feels off or you feel like you have no mobility. So this is for you, if you're one of the types of people that says, I can't do RDLs because my hamstrings are so tight. A lot of times there's really, I hate to say it, there's really not much such thing as tight hamstrings. We use it as a phrase, but what it really means is you're just weak in hip flexion. So a lot of times if you can't do this well, it's because the brain isn't strong enough to actually control active hip flexion. And what you'll find is by strengthening that pattern or even activating the pattern prior to doing this, it's gonna feel a lot better. So one of the things you can do, find a chair, a bench, a box, an ottoman, whatever, and start with your legs out here. Now you wanna try to do this motion all from the hip without compensating with your torso. It's really freaking hard if you do it well, all right? You're gonna put your hands out in front of you so that you have something to brace your torso against. You're gonna inflate your abs and really brace hard. And then you're going to simply lift your leg as high as you can and hold for 6 seconds. And you're gonna reset, other side, brace, lift and hold with your hip flexors. You're gonna do 6 reps each leg with a 6-second isometric hold in the highest position you can possibly get it. As you get better at this, so I am early in my hip rehab phase right now, so right now that's why I can only get it to here, not very good. As you get better, you can expect to get that leg higher and higher. If you want more of a challenge, you can do it on the floor. So doing it on the floor, seated with your legs straight out, lifting up. I know some people use yoga blocks and stack them up to try to get a higher height as they do this exercise. So that's something to work towards. The higher you can control hip flexion with your hip flexors, the better and more smooth of a range of motion you're gonna have in the hip hinge or RDL pattern, okay? So even once you're done with these quarantine workouts, even once you're back to lifting heavy at the gym, I urge you, when you do your deadlifts or RDLs, do a set of these between reps and it's gonna feel so much more smooth. You're gonna feel, it's gonna really grease that pattern really nicely and you're not gonna feel weird when you do it. After the hip flexor iso hold, you're gonna need a little bit of weight. But Coach Ryan, I can't go to the gym, how can I use weight? Use anything you have at your house. Fill a suitcase up with some weight. Use 2 milk jugs. Get a water jug. Fill a book bag with books. It really doesn't matter. The weight, the amount of weight is not essential to this. I'm using 25 pounds, okay? You can use 10 pounds. It doesn't matter. We're just using it for proprioceptive feedback. You're gonna get in that good RDL position. Now we're gonna do 6 reps of breathing deadlifts. So we're doing stretch position breathing and then 5 seconds on the lifting phase of each rep. So what this looks like, you're gonna start at the top, rib cage down, pelvis up, so the spine's neutral and the glutes are turned on. You're gonna unlock the hips and you're gonna push your butt back as far as you can, nice and slow. When you get into that deep stretch position, you're gonna simply take 5 really deep diaphragmatic breaths. From there, you're going to take 5 seconds to come up, focusing on using your glutes and hamstrings to pull you up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stand all the way up and repeat. Now, why are we doing the breathing in that bottom position? Couple reasons. First of all, your diaphragm assists to help stabilize the spine when you're bracing. So when you do a heavy deadlift, for example, a lot of times you'll take a deep breath and hold and brace. The diaphragm helps stabilize the spine there, which is a good thing. However, with light loads, If you breathe at that bottom where you usually seek stability, your diaphragm is forced to focus on the respiration function, and therefore it allows your abs and your abdominal stabilizers, other than the diaphragm, to get stronger and do their job. The other thing that it does, it allows you some time to relax the hamstrings into the stretch. So what you'll often find is with each exhale, you'll be able to sink a little bit deeper into that stretch, which is valuable. The other thing that allows us to do, it gives us time to tweak our pelvic and spine positions with light weight to find the correct positioning for good glute and hamstring recruitment. So as an example, when you get to that stretch position, if you're still really feeling it in your low back, try moving the pelvis. You can try arching a little bit, you can try tucking it under a little bit, adjust the back angle. And what I want you to focus on while you're doing those deep breaths is relaxing the spinal erectors and putting a lot of tension into your glutes and hamstrings, because that's what we're trying to repattern here. So at the end of the day, what we're looking to do with this pairing, we're looking to enable you to recruit your glutes and hamstrings better in an RDL. So all you people that are doing RDLs with 700 pounds, but it blows up your back, now the hope will be that you do this for a couple weeks, you go back to the gym, and those same 700 pound RDLs, now you feel your glutes and hamstrings working more, which leaves a little more reserve in the low back if you want to even get stronger. That's how we get stronger over time, is by getting all the muscles to work better and more effectively. So give this a try. I don't want to plead and beg with you to try it. Just do it. And then when you go back to the gym, I promise you, your deadlift and hip hinge patterns or your kettlebell swings and all that stuff are going to feel a ton better. Okay, I am Coach Ryan Family from the VIPAR Pit. If you like this video, please subscribe below and stay strong during this quarantine. Use this as a time to get better, improve some areas of your life. Don't sit around and mope. It's a useless exercise. Also, make sure you're helping other people. There's a lot of people in need. Reach out to people, do what you can for people that may not have food, people that need medical PPE, protective equipment. Do your part to help, all right? I'll catch you next time. Peace.